Yes.
How do you go against now your family members now you having this type of mindset?
How do I go against my family members because I have this mindset?
Like, who your life experience now that you have gone through, compared to how you were brought up.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address those issues with them?
How do I address the issues with them? It's a tightrope because on the one hand, I want to have a home base. I want to feel loved. I want to feel unconditionally loved. But I don't think that that's always going to be possible for everybody. And so I just say what I need. Like my mother, I'll get on the phone with her. If she starts saying racist stuff, I say once more and I hang up. Because I know she wants to interact with me. And she stops. Not always. If she doesn't, then I do hang up. My father's the same way. I blocked him on Facebook for years, and he recently went, he did the thing where his morality suddenly came into play. He called me from the hospital because he had an operation. Oh, I want to be friends again. I want to get to can you unblock me and let's interact more? And I was like, all right, but you're not going to like what you see, and I'm not going to like what I see. And I'm going to report things. I'm going to ignore things. I'm not going to engage him because I know I'm not changing his mind. But it's a tough call. You do make sacrifices, but I have to say I feel better about myself, and I also believe you make your family yourself. You're not married to biology. You make your family. You find friends who become your family, and the ones that stick with you are the most important ones. So it's a tough call because you often are married to them financially. Like you might be living with them and it's harder to speak out. But once you get away from that financial obligation, you'll find that you have more room to speak as yourself, and they're not going to all just run away and hate you forever. They're going to have to think about what you're unwilling to accept from them at some point. Any other questions? Barbara?
Do you have any of your own poems with you, like a new poem you're excited about or something?
I did bring one poem because I wondered if someone would ask me as a poet to read something, but it's a weird poem,
Good.
which is typical for me. Do you all want to hear a poem by me? Wow. All right, I like this poem because I say my own name in it, and a lot of people don't like when women say their names because we're supposed to be modest and, not focus on ourselves. And I don't know, it's just fun in that regard. And don't be upset initially if you're not from New York City, because I am not. It's called Understanding the Poem. Only people who live in New York City will understand this poem, and even some of them will feel artificial and maybe real-world grief because they don't understand the hell out of this poem for reasons worth pinning down in this poem. But moreover, the approach is to be subjectively framed. That is, it is fully about you and your thick history of experiences and genetics that declare the framework of nature versus nurture in so many debates. That is, if I say, to poet is to process is to Amy King, the poet is still one who longs for another viewpoint, not her own, to see her own through and concur or opposite it. Which is to say, someone who lives on the outskirts in Long Island or Connecticut may not understand what this poem suggests to someone who gets the inside clip, which is primarily the person who lives in New York City at this juncture of the poem especially. Put it a better way, a person who lives in another country such as Russia will certainly understand this poem in an unsound chord, unlike someone who lives in Saudi Arabia, which is a lot like saying Putin versus oil allies, and may not understand anything about this poem at all akin to the person who lives in 1908, because their talk of the poem will be processed far otherwise than the person in 2008, before the towers fell and the modern-day gulag was realized as a for-profit, privatized corporate prison system in a nation hell-bent on peace the American way. Which also means someone who lives in a 2014 Compton neighborhood will certainly regard this poem askance from the person who resides in New York City after years of growing up under stop and frisk, while viewing the protections that suggest this is also about the person who sees through this poem as a person arrested and fined via stop and frisk, which is a shade grayer than the other issued a summons and beat down by stop and frisk. I hope I'm being clear enough here so that you understand who will get this poem and who will not. I can only be as honest with you as I am with myself in the effort, the raw motion to tell why you may or may not understand this poem. This poem is akin to when Foucault offered a picture of a pipe and declared no pipe present. The linguistics didn't gesture as much as Foucault's offer, much like this poem does right now to you in your place. I mean, I have to ask myself, with honesty, Amy King, what would Amy King the reader do with this poem? Because we all need a starting point, and right now it is this, Amy King. And where are you among these words, and by what gesture does this become not a poem, not a pipe? The problem flashes face forward when I want to ask the poet what she meant when she wrote poetry and she is no longer with us. I mean, the poet may not be dead, and she may be even in New York City, standing here right beside you. But is she still the same person in touch with her intuition, influences, and body as she was the day she wrote these words? Were the rats walking upright down alleys, and were the delis open full force the day she left her apartment for a cutting board of cheese at Spuyten Duyvil on Metropolitan, after which she'd meet her friend Sarah and walk to the water's edge for a brown bag beer, back when the towers were still smoldering black smudge across the river? Is she trustworthy? Can she be trusted to guide us? Are her intentions aligned with exactly a moral execution, or her desire to entertain or flatter readers by highlighting their analytical prowess with cheap and easy writerly gimmicks, as in, see how you got this so quickly, poetry readers scattered widely? Truthfully, only people in New York City will understand the difference between writing a poem on a cell phone and pinning it in a notebook standing on the East River shore in Brooklyn drinking a red stripe. People in New York City know the East River is no river at all, but a tidal strait, where truth resembles the hooves of bullets when we take the romantic angle. Although some in New York City haven't noticed today, the East River shores have been bought up by New York University and barred with fences along Williamsburg's periphery, now relocated to East Williamsburg as gentrified sprawl will do. Those also who don't get that Stephen King rewrote Ed Dorn's book of poems Gunslinger into his best-selling novel Gunslinger will experience a difference in understanding that this poem inspires. So what this poem understands for one single soul in this split moment is: badass puppets exist where singularity is self-inflicted and my shame is not enough. She thinks that makes her sound powerful, and so is also invested in a fear of her own impotence, the limits of which narrow just how she understands any poem, a dilation that scares her to strangulation response when the poem is only hugging her closely. She whispers a mantra, "Hello person, I've been waiting for your step, your human failings, each my own as I dream in visual patterns, for I am a poem and song too, a centrality." Let me explain. I am unusual today. The strange rain outside awakens the strange rain within. Sound and rhythm and chants. I am out of your league, born by your language, and I supersede your presence. We bounce between time, we the ever-presence of strangers within us. The drops stir a river bottom's silt. The waves make a tidal straight rush madly outstream. You are the only pain my language receives. What is this? This is this. You are this. Nothing more than this. But elsewhere in the gallery, down the road from the theater, upriver from the stage, we move, we ants, we beasts of burden, thinking ourselves into ourselves, alone things, bodies resistant, misunderstood behaviors. We are the poems that become us, and there is no explanation, no other example for that, for the thing within you that echoes and burgeons with reminders post-words. Souls, spirits, and feelings are not pipes. This world is anything but poem. This world is this world is poem, and I am unusual today, at least. When we leave to walk the shores, now barred by tides and officers of stop and frisk, remember your limits are the ways in which you understand within your limits. Or, as the poet Amy King reminds her historical thickness, my eyes smell of locust trees. I hide my brown bag beer. Georgia pines thread my veins at root. The ants have returned, and winter is a teardrop of words. I have replanted myself as this. I am in need of bullseyes to aim for, in order to be without. I am alone here with occasional friends, with occasional relevance, more pleased than any cadaver, more pleasing than a clubhouse romance. As one would startle the sun, Amy King's poem understands her first. That is how you begin understanding, through this death you carry and whose hand you fondle. The poem also is a handshake. Anyone else who is not Brooklyn or New York City also knows this. Thanks. Thank you. Any last questions? I think we're running out of time. No? None? You totally love that poem and are baffled by it?
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color? Why are you asking me that? That's my student in my children's lit class. What do you think? Black and white and gray.
Oh, I guess you're wearing all black.
That's the question? Is that it? We're going to end on that question? That horrible question from that horrible student? All right, thanks everybody for coming out. I appreciate it.